Games, board games. I might be talking about my deck construction game, but I'm not gonna shout. I play tested it twice yesterday. Wants to teach it and wants to try and say, okay, we've spent some time now, make your own deck. That's the bit I really want to check. It's not just about the game, but also the card pool. And I hope that these cards elicit emotions that are wonderful. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. ish UK time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether, episode 964. My deck construction game diary, designer diary number 5. So yeah, at some point, maybe this will be a thing that I share on Board Game Geek. I don't know, and like it's be like, oh yeah, this is an actual designer diary, like right in the thick of it. This isn't like done after the fact. This is, now I've forgotten which count of games this is, but yesterday I finished writing out and making and photocopying the new card pool, the third one. So I would say that this game this is kind of the fourth iteration. Iteration 1 was just 2 pre-constructed decks, see if the game works, and then change it, and then try it again, change it. And there were lots of things that were interesting, like, okay, contraptions, which are these little things. They're mechanical, so you don't need to finish them before running them. Whereas creatures, yeah, if you have a creature, then, that creature is not living yet. You need to finish off all the ends. So, like, someone was like, yeah, you should have to finish a creature before you start attacking with it and defending it. Like, things that helped it make thematic sense, and wondering, okay, what's going on here? How many resources do I have now? Then deck pool number 1 was like just the first attempt. Let's get it out. Let's let people try it. And deck pool number 1 was, I also tried a drafting system to see if I could simulate the deck construction. But it didn't really work because that kind of mid-game drafting made the game so different, and there's so many things that are to do with being aware of the whole game operates on, you can choose 20 cards, and you start with 5 in your castle and 5 in your hand, so you, well, yeah, and potentially 3 bases out on the table, so potentially you could start with just 7 cards in your deck. Now, recycling is a big part of the game, which means taking things from your discard and then putting them on top or on bottom of your deck. And yeah, you take all the things, you decide which are going to go on the top, which are going to go onto the bottom. You shuffle the top ones together, put them on top, shuffle the bottom ones together, put them on the bottom. And it wasn't always like that. Before, recycling was just take all of them and shuffle them into your draw pile, and it wasn't, and it was done in a case-by-case basis. Each card about recycling did it a little bit differently, but as the time's gone on, realize, yes, recycling is one of the things that I absolutely need to keyword. It's one of the things that you're going to do probably in any deck that you construct. I mean, there's going to be weird decks where you just go with so many cards that you don't need to recycle ever. But yeah, it's the same way that by, I think, the second iteration of the card pool, I had the keywords attach and detach, and I was starting to establish a sort of identity for the circles and the squares. And then this version, what I did is I had 3 different types of resources. So not only do you have little squares, not only do you have circles, But I mean, obviously these are from other games, but you also have little triangles, and your cards are maybe generating stuff. So this is a contraption module. You pay anything to make it happen, and then it turns two triangles into two triangles plus two of anything. That's what the question marks mean. And you've got stuff that demands these things. You've got little nubbins that don't cost anything. And here's one that turns 2 squares into 4 squares. And yeah, all sorts of body parts that cost triangles, circles, or squares. And you can make a 3-color deck if you want. That's what I did last night, and I managed to win with that, even though it was kind of touch and go getting the correct resources. I had enough things that would give me something of anything to make that work. But for sure, if you go to 2 types of resources, let alone just one, then that's going to give you consistency. But then if you go to more, then you can choose all the best spells for a given synergy, and I'm really happy with it. There's a lot of work still to be done, because ideally I want 60 cards which are all viable. And that is a big order. I mean, to make 60 cards and make sure that all 60 of them are actually being played in decks, I mean, that's a lot of playtesting to do. Because, sure, I could make like 1,000 cards and just churn them out, but it's about making these good, making the proper balance, and I might have to reach out to, well, I will have to reach out to other people more and more, maybe even get a co-developer, like, because I'm the designer, I'm too far into the weeds, and maybe someone who's a bit more, well, even more mathsy than I am. I'm fairly good, but yeah, it's in a good state. Just to recap, I finished the 3rd edition of the card pool. We made 2 different decks. Well, we played it once, and it was enjoyed. Then after that, my friend Rob made a deck. I made a deck. My deck was more based on getting in there early and doing lots of damage with the tiniest creatures and rushing. My opponent Rob was more about building up and then coming in with a massive spell that destroys my castle, which is the objective of the game. And yeah, I managed to win, but it was really nice to see that my opponent felt like another thing was viable, and our decks were super different, and the number of cards that were in both our decks is fairly minimal. So let's move on to recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. Recent highlights are since yesterday. So firstly, yeah, today I managed to get showered before the stream. I was like, yeah, I've only got 12. And then I just had a really quick shower, 10 minutes, and then just scrubbed. Like, feels like an achievement. Like yesterday I was talking about routine and having something that gets you started in the day. And that makes me feel like, yeah, I've done something. I had a lovely friend over. We chatted for a while. We had a tiny bit of a walk, and we spent a bit of time together. And oh yeah, board game arena mode finished. So it's like, yeah, this is the number 1 person on each of these games. Congratulations to these people. And photosynthesis is still going because it wasn't long enough last season. So I'm going to, keep playing that and see if I can get higher in the rankings. We will see. What else? Oh yes, when in the evening my friend Rob came over, and so Rob brought over their sort of, it's a game inspired by American football, but the game says that it's going to be set like a robotic version, like 100 years in the future. And the idea is that, like, yeah, you can feel free to change the rules. And for me, the whole, okay, you go forwards and then you stop and then you restart where the ball was and then you go forward. And like, that's that felt weird because I didn't know American football. And so we redid the scoring, we redid it to make something that makes more intuitive sense for someone who's never really studied American football. I mean, if I'd really thought about it, I would have been like, yeah, maybe that does happen. But um, I it's not part of my general consciousness, if you know what I mean. It's not like, I mean, I know the offside rule in football, like Americans would call it soccer, and I imagine that's something that Americans or like, do Canadians play football? I don't know, but yeah, I imagine it's certainly something that people in the USA would just not be familiar with at all, and so Rob's game, we rejigged it, but there's a lovely drafting and then playing, and okay, I do these things, and then you do these things, and you're kind of programming at the same time, and then you reveal them in turn. But then the things that you programmed, it does push you down a particular path, but you do get to turn them, so you can change the direction. But for sure, it might still be that you don't want to do the thing with that player anymore. And there's all these mind games of, oh, if I do that, you'll do that, but then you know that I could do that to win, so you will block me. But because I know that you could block that obvious move, maybe I do this slightly less obvious move to beat your thing. But then are you going to notice that I could do this less obvious move? And then we get into the whole yummy of what, and yeah, that was a great game. And of course, actually spending a couple of hours playing through this was an absolute highlight. And then walking Rob back to the station and having a chat about it. And for me, that is a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. It's a little thing which is brilliant. I'm going to say that having someone, I mean, obviously, playtesting shouldn't be dependent on people enjoying your stuff. I mean, playtesting is just people playing it and then giving feedback. Hello, Mike. It's lovely to see you. I hope you're generally well. Lovely to see you here. And but when people actually do enjoy it, when people are like, yeah, this was fun, and then that just resonates, that invigorates me, that makes me feel like, you know what, it's worth carrying on. Because yesterday I was probably a 3 out of 10. Today, you know what? I am like a 3.5, maybe even a 4 out of 10, because I'm, kept afloat by that. I'm thinking, you know what? Someone really enjoyed it, even though it's not finished, even though there's more work to be done. It's in a state where people are enjoying my deck construction game, and yeah, I can keep going. And so actually seeing someone enjoy the thing that you made, I hope that if you have ever experienced that, if you've ever made something and then had someone enjoy it, I hope you can think back to those moments where it's like, yeah, this was worth doing, and I've got that power to make people smile. And if you haven't experienced that, I really hope that you can. But feel free to share, some, like, have you ever had, what have you made? Like, feel free to share if you want, because yeah, as always, feel free to comment, ask questions from like follow. I mean, the reason that I do these things live is so that I can get a modicum of interaction, even if it's just someone saying hello and, throwing in some emojis, which is absolutely lovely. And so thank you for being here. And yeah, interaction is the reason that I do these things live. So, and also, if you are watching after the fact, ask anything you want on YouTube. I reply to all the respectful questions and comments I can. So, let's talk about this. Actually, you know what? I am going to do card list, find my card list spreadsheet, and I'm going to share that screen. Sharing the screen of my cards list. Sorry about this. Just a moment. There we wait a minute. Am I sharing the right screen? There we go. I am sharing the right screen. Okay, cool. So what I did is before I had all these things written, and it was like, okay, I want to have some stuff where you recycle, and it's like burn 2 cards from a discard, shuffle the others back into your deck. And then it's like, okay, 5 different versions of that, a bunch of fast mana effects, a bunch of direct damage, detaching your opponents, drawing extra cards, and then target player discards their hands and draws 4. I was quite proud of this because it's like, yeah, if you're above 4, then this is punishing you. But also, if I am below 4, then if I manage to play this as my last spell, it's essentially a draw 4 card. And so this is like a really powerful thing, and I like that sort of flexibility. A bunch of discard spells where, yeah, everyone has to discard, and then stuff where you manage to get your creatures through, like attacking a second time, doubling the stats, and then giving you bonuses for your eyes or mouth or hands, and then attaching multiple modules to creatures on the turn, attaching like multiple things, because normally you're only allowed to attach one module at a time, so creatures grow very slowly. So if you want a creature with 3 parts, then it would take you 1, 2, 3 turns to play it, and then you'd need to attack with it on turn 4. But if you've got this one, then you can do a bonus attachment. Or if you've got this one, you could, if you've got enough resources, you could go from nothing to like the biggest ever creature in like 0 turns. Attach extra modules to contraptions, drawing extra cards, something that focuses you into weenies like small creatures, and then yeah, stuff to get extra cards. Detaching all modules from a creature without eyes, because some of the creatures have eyes. You see, and let me make this slightly bigger. That's good. So this is a mouth and a hand. The mouth attacks, and the hand steals stuff. Yeah, like I said, the hand just steals stuff. Let me find something with eyes. Where are some eyes? Sorry about this. I should, but some of the creatures do have eyes, and hopefully they are very obviously eyes. And this is a creature with a mouth and 2 eyes. The eyes don't do anything, but then some of the cards refer to them. So having more eyes means that a creature is sort of protected. And also there's cards that draw things for your creatures with eyes. Detaching things from a creature with toughness under 3. Never used that. Stealing stuff directly. Discarding cards randomly, and forcing, well, allowing creatures to attack again, or forcing people to either this was a card that wasn't in the final card pool. I maybe should need to write that so I remember. And yeah, these things where it's like, oh, each player shuffles their hand into their deck, then draws 1 card for each base. I mean, that feels fair, but it's clearly not, because clearly if you're playing this, you've lopsided it and added a lot more bases to your deck. You can't be attacked next turn, getting bonus stats or decreasing your things, and then we've got the contraptions and the creatures and a few other things. Draw 1 card for each eye, discarding until you have no more cards in hand than your castle. That was an interesting one. Detach a module from each creature contraption. And these were all the text ideas. Hopefully that gives an idea of my process. And Mike says, seen a few people talking about one of your games, coloring in some of the cards. Oh, do you mean Kerry with a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises? Yes, our mutual friend Kerry did send me photos. That was lovely to see. And I mean, if there's more than just one person, that's awesome to hear. But yeah, I got sent photos and I got told that I could share them. So yeah, you know what, I will do that. But thank you for letting me know about that. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mike. Anyway, and the Discords loved it. Oh, amazing. I mean, my StreamYard Stream Elements even automatically does the thing, but and hello, Sates, thank you for coming in and lurking. You're very welcome to lurk as much as you want. can you send me a link to the Discord, like maybe on Board Game Arena, I guess is the easiest way, but yeah, back to my deck construction game. So this was something that I had written out around my second, while I was planning for my third iteration. But then I thought, okay, you know what? I want to try not two, because previously it was just the squares and the circles, but three different resources. The way that resources work in this game, let me actually change the thing. The way that resources work in this game, resources are a permanent thing, so they carry on from turn to turn. You could gain one resource, and next turn just have one more resource. The way that you gain resources is twofold. Firstly, you've got some cards that are fast effects. You play this card and you could turn one circle into 5 of anything. That's amazing. That's a really powerful card. You could also play, let me see, another fast effect. Circles are particularly good. This one just gives you 4 triangles, which is also really good. I mean, another one might. And conversely, there are these contraptions. Now, the way that contraptions work is you've got your little contraption, and the cards you see are domino shapes, and then you slide them in. And then on future turns, you can run this. And this one, every time you run it, will give you 1 square. Boom! 1 square. If you wanted to have a more involved contraption, you could have this contraption, which can have 2 attachments, but then you'll need to spend a resource or a card to run it. So you could spend 1 resource to add this, like the thing on the top right is what is added, and then the thing on the side is what happens. So here, if you attached both of these and spent 2 turns to attach them, or used the card to bypass the timing, then on a future turn, you can spend 1 resource or a card, and then turn 2 triangles into 2 triangles plus 2 anything, and then turn 2 triangles into 2 triangles plus anything. So basically, if you've got 2 triangles and a resource to start off with, you're going to net 3 resources of your choice, which is quite cool. And then you can, there's a decision of, are you going to add to your contraptions, or are you going to run the contraptions? At what point do you say, yeah, this is big enough, I'm now going to run it to generate stuff? And when you're constructing your deck, you decide, am I going to use this contraption as a base, which allows me to have 1 of anything? Because in order to overcome in order to slightly offset, to mitigate the luck that's inherent in randomly shuffling a bunch of cards, you get to start the game with 3 of your bases. So straight away you're thinking, do I start off with 2 contraptions and 1 creature, because that allows me to really get an engine going? Or do I start with 2 creatures to start attacking as quickly as possible and maybe just the 1 contraption? Do I have, I mean, I don't know, if maybe things need to be rebalanced. There's definitely, if the numbers aren't wrong somewhere, then that would be ridiculously lucky. I mean, this is the 3rd iteration, and I feel like I'm still in the sort of vision design phase. So I feel like, to use terminology from another much more popular game, I've gone through the exploratory design. So to recap what this game is all about, you have contraptions, which give you resources. You have creatures, which allow you to attack. Where's creature base? You have creatures, which allow you to attack. This is just the body of a creature, and then you stick heads or hands or whatever onto it. And then your creatures allow you to attack and That's their main function, although there might be cards that do things with the eyes. And then the contraptions allow you to generate resources. Some of the contraption bits allow you to turn cards into resources. Some of them allow you to turn resources into cards. And obviously, it's a little bit more powerful doing it the other way, but you can only run each contraption once, naturally. And then what this is all in aid for is crushing the castle. So on the other person's area, they have 5 cards face down. They don't know what they are, and each time you attack with a creature, if it's got at least 1 strength, if it's not blocked, then one of the castles is destroyed, and it's like, I lost my castle, and now you're down to 4. Okay, now you're down to 3, 2, 1, and then you're dead and you lose the game. If you run out of cards in your deck, you still need to draw cards. So then you need to draw one of your castle cards. And so whether you run out of cards in your deck or whether you've just been attacked and not been able to block, you do get a bonus card. So it's like, I'm getting more powerful. I've got more opportunities. Hopefully this card is something that will help you. But you're obviously closer to destruction. So it's got that inherent excitement of, okay, after I get hit, I am more likely to come back from the brink, which is a nice sort of, thing. Now, there are direct damage spells, and obviously if you can deal multiple damage in one turn, that means that the opponent never gets to use any of those nice spells that they had. And talking about this overall rules, like, there's 2 parts to this game, ultimately. Like, there's the overall rules, the rules of the game, and then there's, okay, what are the cards actually doing? And the way I've been working is kind of doing a bit of that, but like working in tandem. And as you do more of one thing, that makes you realize, oh, maybe my game needs this, maybe I need to. Now, the question is, there were a couple of questions that I asked my opponent, playtesting partner yesterday. Like, I asked about the overall framework. They really enjoyed it, and I gave them one of the decks, although it is literally just photocopied bits of paper. So we literally use other cards on top of it, so you can't see through your deck. But they took it home and are happy to keep working on their deck and fiddling with it before they come back, which is a really good sign. And how can I put... So they enjoyed it, but I really probed into things. I really asked, well, what would you change? What's the biggest problem? How could it be a little bit better? So I asked, well, do you think that I need more combat tricks? Do you think I need like some instance, something that you can do on the other person's turn? And this was something that was 50-50 on my mind, because instants do allow for that lovely, I play this, I'm surprising you, something that you can't generally do online. I want this game to be something that is all about the real life play. I don't know if I'm even going to test it online, although, yeah, maybe if someone else helps me put a mod together, but I'm not going to optimize it for online, definitely not. So instants and combat tricks are one of those things that make the game worse online but make it better in person. I was thinking, should I lean into that? Then I asked my Rob, and it could work in Tabletop Sim. It could work in... I feel like let's not rush to Tabletop Simulator as the thing, and I'm kind of against Tabletop Simulator for a few different reasons, but I would be more inclined to ask someone to help me put it on Tabletopia, or alternatively, screentop.gg, I think, is a really nice thing for games. And it's just, okay, I see it from top down, I see all the things. It's not trying to be, oh, it's a 3D space from this little angle. I mean, for me, the 2D nature of screentop.gg really elevates it, but I do appreciate that. Or, I mean, if you are offering to come over and help me, put this on something, then obviously I would be totally in favor of that, whatever medium. But like, yeah, if all else being equal, I would much rather do screentop.gg because I think that's much better for card games in general. The fact that you've got to construct your deck does make it a little bit difficult for these online games. Yeah, I would have to definitely look into what's suitable for a deck construction game where, people should be able to say, hey, this is my deck, and then I'm going to take it away and bring my deck to the game next week or in 2 weeks' time. And so I don't know what online thing offers that capable. I'm sure there's plenty of things out there. But anyway, back to the point. Back to the point about should there be combat tricks? And my partner said, you know what? I actually really like the way the game is that you do your things on your turn. On the other person's turn, all you think about is how to block when they attack, but then the rest of it, you're just watching them do their thing, and you draw your card at the end of your turn, and then you get your opponent's turn to ponder what your plan is, and each of these cards actually has a little bit more to it than a normal card because not only does it have the spell on one side, it's also got this. So, like, a hand allows you to steal resources. If you attack with a creature and the creature has well, for each hand it has, if it's not blocked, you steal one resource from the opponent, which could be really powerful. And I actually won the game by stealing a circle because my opponent only kept one circle, thinking, I only need one circle, that will be enough, but they didn't count for me coming in and stealing that circle. Wahahaha. Anyway, but yes, of course it's interactive. Of course, what I do on my turn you care about, but at the same time, you don't have to think, oh, am I going to play this? Am I going to play that? No, your turn is the time when you're doing the most things. So it feels a bit more, yeah, it feels kind of more, now's the time for my brain to be on, now's the time for my brain to be relatively off and be in planning mode. And that's kind of a nice thing. And well, that's what my partner said. And I think, like, my playtesting partner, and I'm going to agree with them, and hopefully I can bring enough complexity in other places. Like, hopefully there's enough strategic complexity in playing the game. I think there is, because every card, I mean, unlike most games, it's not just when do I play the card, which card do I play, but it's also which side of the cards do I play, because the vast majority of cards, sure, some of them are a base, and then you get them from, and if it's something that's in your deck, you just put it down, and then you start doing stuff with it straight away. But yeah, with this, we there's a decision to be made. Like, do I want this? Do I want this? Which one do I want more? And obviously, you've got to balance. So I think there is enough there. There was one change that we made that we decided to make, although it didn't actually affect the game. But we decided to make one change before the second game, where I said, okay, if you are allowed, you do start the game with 3 bases, but let's say you draw a base from your deck and then you play it down. Should you be allowed to attach to it straight away? And after a bit of talking and a bit of pondering, we decided that attaching it straight away feels like the more fun thing. And to heck with feeling easier to balance or whatever. Let's go with the fun thing. Let's push those power levels up. I am from the glory to Rome idea of every card should be like, wow, this is cool. This is something I'm excited about. If a card isn't exciting you or exciting someone, then that card shouldn't be in the game, in my opinion. And so you play this, and then straight away it's like, haha, I play this, and so theoretically, if you had this in your hand, you could say, aha, I've got nothing, but now, boom, I play this, and I play this. It's a double-headed, double-mouthed monster, so that's 2 attack. Boom, I can, and if you've got the correct card that allows you to attack straight away, then that could come out of nowhere. And Or if you've got the card that allows you to attach for free, you could play it, attach for free, and then attack with it, come out of nowhere. So there's the potential for that surprise, but people are aware that that potential is there. So it almost puts you on edge because it's like, this could happen. And it never happened during our second game, but it could have happened. And I think that tension did improve the game by quite a bit. And I want people to have a reason to put more bases into their deck. So anything that encourages the thing that people are doing less of because of strategic viability, but feels inherently fun, that feels like a good rule. The big change that we obviously had was 3 different resource systems. I'd like to talk about that very quickly. So I tried to give squares, circles, and triangles, that's what these symbols mean on my spreadsheets. I tried to give them a little bit of a different, how can I put this? A bit of a different identity. Like, so it's like, okay, squares, they don't have any eye spells at all. They've got some eyes and some hands, and they've got some mouths, and they've got more mouths than the other colors. They've got more detaching, they're more aggressive. They've got the standard amount of one-time generation and contraption, but they've got extra draw. So like squares have that, okay, we're going to draw into things quite quickly. Every color has some recycling. Squares have extra direct damage. We're going to flatten your face, and they're the only color that gives the only shape that gives negative stats to the opponent. Conversely, circles have a bit more hands. They're the main color with fast growth, where you can be like, okay, I'm going to put these creatures together, and then my creatures are going to all build up really big, and I'm going to make the biggest creature. That's something that I want to incentivize. And then one-time generation, if you don't want to play with the contraptions, that's an option for you. And they've got little bits of drawing and a good amount, the most surprise stats, like and then I thought, okay, triangle, triangles are all about the eyes. They've got spells that interact with the eyes, and they've got more eyes on their cards, and they've got less hands, and they've got more direct stealing. So maybe you can just steal a creature, and you've got more contraption generation. Like triangles are easier to make with the contraptions, and they're better at, pardon me, the recycling, and are the best. They're the only one who says, you know what, you don't get to attack next turn. So I started off trying to do this, and then keeping a total of, okay, roughly what would this be like? And then let's make not just that, but let's make an actual spell list. So taking out the hands and eyes and mouths, which are to do with the creatures, let's just look at the spells. How many of each should there be? And this is what I went in with to draw stuff. And I completely ignored all of this stuff that I drew. I just drew 60 spells and was like, okay, let's have all the ice spells. And that doesn't mean that other things won't have ice spells, but they need to also be like, it could be like detach for each eye that you have, for example. And then you can see like, there's hopefully a bit of an identity here where there's at each color, like each shape has at least one thing that the others don't. I mean, and I do need to look at this more carefully, but triangles are the only one that's really all about ice spells and direct stealing and no attack, and then the squares are the only one with negative stats, and they've got so much more direct damage and a good amount more detaching. Circles are the only one with fast growth and a lot more one-time generation. So hopefully they've got their own sort of identities. And that means that, yeah, maybe you are thinking, well, if I want this, I'll just go for squares. Now that's a problem. So what I want is for, let's think about, for just a minute, sorry. Let's think about how many decks you can realistically make. For the record, deck card pool number 3 has 80 cards in it, which is a bit more than the final card pool size will be. I'm planning it for it to be about 60, but if I have too many and then I can shrink it down, that's probably a better way than adding more or just changing them along the way. I want to be like, okay, I'm going to just keep all the best spells, the best cards, the best modules. So reminder, this side is called a module, whether it's the creature or the contraption module. And then this side with the text on it is called a spell, which is you just play it, you do the thing, and then you discard it. So let's think about how viable is it to have meaningfully different decks, not just a deck. I mean, if the way to play it was to say, okay, I'm going to go for these 20 cards, like if each of the shapes had so in the end, your deck size is going to be minimum 20 cards. To play the game well, you want to get closer to that minimum deck size. Either you're going above it because you want to not recycle anything, or you go as close to it as possible, and then you have the maximum amount of agency over what your cards that you actually see are, and use some recycling spells that allow you to put cards from your discard back into your deck to make sure that you never run out of cards. So if the card pool was essentially free, choose one, that's rubbish. That means that there's 3 possible decks. That's not deck construction. That's just choosing between 3 different asymmetric factions. That's not deck construction at all. So what I need to do is to have some way of encouraging people to play a bit of this and a bit of that, to say, yeah, not all the cards in a color are necessarily equal. So maybe if you have the detaching cards, sure, if you're all about keeping your opponent down and nailing them, some of those, maybe you want more than just 6 spells about detaching. Maybe you actually want those 6 plus these 3 plus these 3. Maybe you want all the colors. If you want, so either you've got the consistency of resources, or you've got the consistency of, or you've got the synergy. Now, if we said, I actually worked this out, so I'm going to check the exact numbers. If we said, okay, this is basically just groups of 10, and you're probably going to play all 10 of them together, and it's essentially 6, choose 2. I mean, where why can't I find it? Why can I not find it? I do apologize. I am, yeah, I've got way too many windows open. I do apologize. Here we go. So 6 choose 2 would be 15, which is a reasonable number, but it's still not, okay, I've chosen 1 out of 15 possibilities. Now, if you've got groups of 5, and if we say, okay, you're probably, there's a good chance you're going to want all 5 of these cards together, then it becomes 12 choose 4. So there's 495 viable decks. And that's great. I mean, 495, if there's fewer than 495 people playing, which hopefully there aren't, hopefully there's like thousands, but I can still feel like, I've had a good amount of choice over this. But if each of those cards can legitimately be in any order. And if it's genuinely 60 cards, choose 20 of them, and any of these decks is kind of viable, then that becomes, oh, I just realized that sorry about that. That becomes 4 million billion, by which I mean that's a 4 and then 15 other numbers after it. It's not exactly 4 million billion, it's like 4 point something something to the power of times 10 to the power of 15. So like it's a 16-digit number, and like that's like ridiculous. That's like there's only billions of people in the world, so even if everyone played it a million times, which is well, it's not literally inconceivable, but like even if everyone in the world played it um you know every day for the entire rest of their lives, you still probably would be making a deck that literally no one else has made. If, and this is a big if I can make it so that every single card is viable. And that is my goal. So not many, says Mike. Yeah, a very small number, like 4 million billion. I mean, 4 times 10 to the 15, yeah, plus something. Um, I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling to appreciate that. And it reminds me that the key point isn't to have lots of cards and lots of cards. I mean, frankly, once you're into the once you're into that many combinations, you don't need more and more and more cards. I honestly believe that having a deck construction game, and this is the entire premise of this, having a deck construction game where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cards are being released every year is unnecessary. I believe that having a sure there's some value, but like having a deck construction game where there's thousands of possible cards is not required to give you a feeling of empowerment and agency over the deck that you build. I believe that what's really required is to have a significant number of cards that are flexible. Yes, sure, they can push you towards one direction. I mean, maybe there's only a billion possible viable decks because actually, if you're playing for each eye on your live creatures recycle 1, well, then you clearly want to play with, I mean, you want at least one eye in your deck. Like, it would be completely nonsensical. I mean, the other side, unless, of course, actually, and this is a good thing in the deck construction favor, unless you are really all about the steely resources. And no, Star Realms is not a deck construction game. Star Realms is deck building. Deck building is totally different. This is a deck construction game. Deck building, you add cards and you grab cards during the game. Deck construction, you decide your deck, you play the game, you think, oh, I enjoyed that. And then you think, okay, did I lose or did I win because of my deck? Or was it because of the in-game decisions that I made? Was it because of the random chance? Now I'm going to maybe go away and fiddle with my deck a little bit. Take out these couple of cards, put in these couple of cards. Maybe I realize that I need a bit more fast resources. Maybe I realize that I don't need this particular contraption. And it's about that meta game in between games. You're feeling so, yeah. In case that wasn't obvious, I mean, this is not a deck building game, and it doesn't work as a deck building game. It's more that people have access to the same cards. Yeah, so that's kind of true. Although in Star Realms, I could argue that, well, someone gets first chance. Like a new card comes out and I might have the opportunity to buy that, and you never have had the opportunity to buy that. So even though we just have one deck going on, I wouldn't say we really have access to the same cards. I would say that if anything, Dominion is more, we have access to the same cards because I'm guaranteed to still, even if it goes one entire round and everyone's buying one particular thing, there's enough that even the last player in turn order can still get it. Whereas in Star Realms, because of the random order, it could totally be that I play and I've got one card that I really enjoy playing with, but I never get access to it because it comes out and you take it all the time. But yeah, with this game, it is going to be a fixed card pool. It's like an expandable card game. It's not a typical trading card game or collect CCG or DCG. It's very much in the framework of an ECG or LCG, but it's got the difference that in my game, every card is unique and you only are allowed to use one of each card. So you buy the 60 card, and yes, when you go into the pre-release event or the release event, my vision for this, like if it could be like super magical fantasy Christmas land, it would be like people think, oh wow, the new set's coming out, and then there's this big like hush hush. I try to avoid spoilers on the internet, and then yeah, everyone opens it at like a certain time. Maybe people get, like, if it gets big enough, I guess we'll have to put it on the internet, because otherwise when you send it to shops, some shop would open it, let's be serious. But then people get access to these cards mostly for the first time and are seeing them, are like, oh cool, this is 60 cards, and then they get like an hour to construct their deck, and then they play a series of games. And then the key thing is that unlike a normal TCG or CCG pre-release, where you're like, hey, I made a deck, I had fun with it, but at the end, my deck isn't going to be as powerful as a constructed thing. Here, I feel like that should be a really solid power level. That is a solid deck that you can play and have, competition with. And this is the box that people will be playing with for a while. And I want, it to be like, oh, there's been 5 releases, but any of the super expensive cards are like, if you want all the cards, you can just buy this box and it gives you literally all the cards. But if you bought the first edition, then obviously there's some collectability and people might want it for the earlier artwork or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's super magical fantasy Christmas land, and thinking about it where rather than having people rather than having new cards being released every couple of months or whatever, what if every month there was, hey, now in shops, each month there's like a different twist to the game, like a meta rule, like saying, okay, for a deck construction rule, like, okay, this month you need to use this one card. It doesn't matter what else you've got in your deck, but you need to use this one card. And then for this month, maybe rather than starting with 3 resources, you start with 4 resources. I mean, how would that change? Or maybe like you just start with 6 for a month, and then you say, okay, on this month, everyone has like this ability to draw 2 cards per turn, and like kind of having a really solid framework of the game that you can then put modifiers. And of course you want to put modifiers, like people want to change the rules. That's the nature of a deck construction game, that you can be like, oh, I'm drawing more, all my spells do extra damage, oh, all my spells are cheaper now, oh, all my spells now I'm being rewarded for playing lots of things in one turn. Okay, now I'm being rewarded for playing few things in one turn. Like, I'm deciding what avenue I'm going down, and I'm going to stick to this strategy. And I think there's something really powerful about that. I think that, it's, how can I that's my vision. Anyway, so the free resources seem to work well. It's my concern was that there would be few enough cards of each resource that people would be like, yeah, I'm just going to go to this resource and that's a deck. And you know what? Maybe that is people's starting deck. Maybe that's how they start. But then after that, they will tweak things and maybe puts in like, hey, you know what? This is already giving me resources of my choice. And I could already have some flexibility. So if I only had one card of a different resource type, that would be fine as long as I only need to play it later on in the game. I mean, that kind of thing where people are starting to think in that way, I think could be really powerful. The one change that I talked to about with my playtesting partner, and I'm going to try it, is to say that, so currently the way that combat works is I attack with my creature. This is a terrible creature. This has 0 attack because it doesn't have a mouth. Conversely, this creature, which I'm about to show you, has 2 attack because it has 2 mouths. It also has 2 eyes, which might be good for some cards. But yes, if you attack with this creature and then the opponent defends with a creature, then if their creature has 1 or 0 attack, then you rip out one of their modules on their creature and it gets detached, which means that it goes back to their hand. So it doesn't go to the discard pile, it just goes back to your hand, but it's still setting you back because normally you can only play one of them per turn. If they block with a creature that's got more power than you, like 3 or more, then one of your bits gets ripped out. And if they've got a creature that's got 2 power, exactly the same, then both creatures get 1 bit ripped out, and it's, now this creature is no longer alive, and you need to fix it on a future turn. But either way, you're only standing to lose 1, and the only reason that you might make this creature is if the opponent doesn't have any creatures at all, or rather any finished creatures. So even if they had this, because it's not finished, because it's still got this end bit here, they can't block with it. And so this would run through, and this would grab a little resource because it's got a hand. I say a little resource, it's not like there's little resources and big resources. It would grab a resource. Yes, you can make more than 1 critter. Oh, I like the word critter. That's a good word. I've been calling them creatures, but critter is so much better. Or should I stick with creatures? But yes, you can make as many as you want. I mean, so in my deck yesterday, I had 2 creature cards to start with. So you have 3 bases, and I think I might have. I'm searching through my deck. Yes, I started off with 2 creature cards bases and 1 contraption base. So the contraption was one that was free to run, but only gave me 1 thing to give me lots of resources as quickly as possible. And then with this one, I could start attacking on turn 2. With this one, I could start attacking on turn 3 in theory. And so, yeah. Thank you very much for allowing me to use your word. Yeah. Hold on a sec. But yes, you could have more. You start off with 3 bases, so you could have just 3 creature bases if you want, but you can also stack your deck full of more bases if you want, which would mean that you could have lots and lots and lots of things. Yeah, it does make me think that maybe, yeah, I still need to work out the card thing, and like I said, it's now. So, sorry, let me backtrack a moment. So what we've decided is to incentivize people to make big creatures. What I'm going to do is to say, if you have got a 3 power creature and a 1 power creature, the 1 power creature gets 2 pieces detached. And that gives you a reason to make bigger and bigger creatures. and it lets you push them further back. And sure, that one, it might even be a 0 power creature with just a nubbin. The nubbin being the bit that doesn't do anything but is free to make. So like this little nubbin doesn't cost anything, but equally it doesn't do anything. It just helps you finish a creature. So if you really wanted a creature quickly, this is the way to go. Lots of nubbins, just get them in and get your creatures finished, and then you can attack with lots of creatures. Because if your opponent only has one and you've got like 6 creatures, you've won the game because they can only block one, and you attack with 6, and then, well, as long as you've got at least one attack, to be fair. So you need one mouth, and the rest can be nubbins. But yes, so to counteract that, if you had a creature with like 5 power or like even 3 power, which is kind of realistic, and then they have a creature with 1 power, then you're ripping out 2 of their pieces. So not only would you rip out their mouth, which you need to put back in and takes them down a turn, but you're ripping out another piece, even if that's an nubbin. Like, sure, that might not cost them anything, but it's either going to cost them a spell to accelerate, or it's going to cost them yet another turn to get that in, to regrow that creature and to rebuild it. Or alternatively, you can have a card where everyone discards down to 4. And obviously, if you've just attacked and then they've blocked, or if they've blocked and then you've got lots of stuff in their hand, and then when it comes down to your turn, they've still got lots of stuff in their hand, then make them discard down to 4. And I think that's so. In this game currently, there is no hand limit. You can have as many cards as you want, but if you've got more than 4 cards, you might have to discard them, and it might be really bad for you. There's things where you discard everything, redraw up to 4, which obviously, like I said, it's both a really nice draw spell, which draw 4 cards, that's brilliant, as long as it's your last card, and it incidentally reminds people, it keeps that tension. If you go above 4, you're suffering the risk of having to discard all of them and draw 4. And so yeah, it incentivizes you to have that fewer cards. So like there's this push and pull of, yeah, having more cards is nice because it gives me more opportunities, but I want to play them now. And it pushes the game towards action, which is the exciting thing. I don't want people to just be draw cards, yeah, do your thing. I attack, yeah, I draw a card, do your thing. I want people to be like, okay, I attack, I add this module, I make this creature more powerful. Now it's your turn. Like, I want people to actually be doing the things and having this kind of it's kind of like Catan in that, I mean, R.I.P. Klaus Teuber, bloomin' heck. Yeah, sorry, just tiny bits of grief there. Rest in peace, Klaus Teuber. But yeah, Catan, in the same way that there's technically no hand limit, but as soon as you go above 7, you've got this tension of, is someone going to roll the 7? Is someone going to get the robber? And yeah, for sure. Is someone going to make me discard? This is like a nice bit of, that's a really nice aspect of the game. And you are allowed to push your luck. I mean, there's been times when I felt like, you know what, I went above 7 deliberately, and it was absolutely the correct thing to do but I knew I was pushing my luck. And similarly here, I want to kind of capture little bits of that feeling of, yeah, I can go above 4. And I know 4 seems really low, but remember that every card gives you 2 options. So it's almost like having 8 things in your hand to consider in a sense, which is a lot. And I found that as soon as it went above 5, people start, like even really experienced gamers started to really slow down. So I think, yeah, first player starts off with 4, second player starts off with 5. Sure, it does mean that the first player could punish the second player straight away, but then they've spent all their resources doing it, which is almost certainly a bad move. And so, yeah, I'm not worried about that. All it means is that the second player has to play at least 2 spells, which should be relatively easy. And yeah, but Anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, attacking. I'm going to try a different form of combat resolution where rather than just loser gets one bit ripped out of them, sure, if there's a tie, it will be both one bit ripped out. If you lose by one, you get one bit ripped out. The winner doesn't get anything. If you lose by two, you get 2 bits ripped out, so forth. It's still fairly, and that's, yeah, pushing people towards making the biggest creatures. So where is the game right now? As you can tell by the fact that I tweaked the play a card and then attach stuff straight away, and exactly how the combat resolution works. No, the basic rules aren't fixed. I mean, I don't think I should make them fixed until the last possible moment. I think that, with the benefits of hindsight, there's stuff about Magic the Gathering that after many years, people are like, you know what, this would have been better like that. And I would like to take this game on the biggest ever playtesting journey that I've done. So I've already gone through the third card pool. I'm going to probably do a few more. I'm going to print some prototypes professionally. I'm going to try that out. I might see if I can do online testing. And then at my leaving party, are you coming to my leaving party, Mike? Yeah, is everyone who's watching? I know there's like other people watching as well. I'm having a leaving party because I'm emigrating from the UK 11th, 12th, and 13th August. It's like a mega party. There's going to be things going on every day. And everyone who comes will get a good, like, it will be like version 0.2, let's call it, of my deck construction game. And there'll be like a tournament on Friday night, and everyone will get like the deck when they arrive, and it'll be like, hey, let's play a tournament. Oh, I'm not sure I can make it over. Yeah, sad face. I'm enjoying the fact that you just wrote out sad face, Roger. Are you doing text, voice to text by any chance? Because when I do smiley face, my voice to text actually draws a smiley face, but when I write sad face, it doesn't. Oh, nope. Okay, fair enough. I'm just really amused. I didn't realize people actually typed that out. But yeah, would have been lovely. But yeah, Friday night will be a tournament for this. There will also be other 2 p.m. events each day. Friday might be making noises, like Saturday might be Yogi Stock Guru, and Sunday will probably be the biggest ever game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your vegetables game ever. And we'll have other big things. But I'm just going to skedaddle. But because I've got a visitor, but I'm going to say that is my game. I've done the exploratory phase. I'm on the vision phase. I'm trying to make sure that all the strategies are viable. And the question of the day, here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day. My question to you is, what do you prefer the word creature or critter? That's genuinely my question. So I'm going to ask, a question to you. And please excuse me for just one moment. At this point, I kind of feel like critter feels kind of American though, but lots of love. And I'm going to say over to you. What are you up to? You can share what's in if you want to. I've got someone coming over. I've got to put some pants on. That's probably more information than you wanted. That I'm not wearing pants. Yeah, and possibly something else on as well, like leggings or trousers or skirts. Anyway, but yeah, what are you up to? I'm going to have someone over. I'm going to hopefully, sort some stuff out, and lots of love. If there's anything you want to share, otherwise recap and wrap up before we finish up. My recap and wrap up is that the game's going well. I've been energized. It was super lovely, and it's been super lovely seeing you. Lots of love. Share, spread the word. Thank you very much, everyone. Stuff by Bez in all of the places. Stuffbybez.com/streams. The only thing left for me to say, as always, is Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye.